Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. How does Zakah purify one's wealth? How does Zakah purify one's wealth? First and foremost, what is Zakah? Zakah is one of the fundamental acts of worship in Islam, the act of worship that is connected with wealth. And it goes hand in hand with our prayer, for in almost every instance wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to establish the prayer in our lives, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, it is usually juxtaposed with the command to also worship Allah by attributing, or rather by contributing our wealth for His sake, and therefore sharing it with the less fortunate and the needy. So this command appears over 80 times in the Quran in different forms. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Pray salah and give zakah. Zakah is a specific allocated portion of wealth taken from certain types of wealth and given to certain categories of people based on the conditions and integrals set out by Islam. So how does giving one's wealth as a charity lead to purifying one's wealth and gaining what is asked here in this question? So zakah purifies one's wealth by removing the greed and the stinginess and the selfishness that is usually associated with wealth. Usually we speak about the problem of poverty. But in Islam, the more appropriate conversation to have before the problem of poverty would be the problem of wealth. So when we rid ourselves of the burden of responsibility of wealth, we are purifying ourselves in that sense. The very word zakah means purification or pure, and it also means to grow, because giving zakah is associated with a number of factors. It purifies the wealth that we keep behind, because when we give that which belongs to the poor, which is essentially what it is, we then free what we have, what we have retained. We free that from being mixed with property and the wealth of others that we have no right to. So in that sense, our wealth becomes purified. Our wealth also becomes purified in the sense of blessing. So what we keep for ourselves, what we retain, is filled with barakah by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore would be much more beneficial for us. The cleansing of the soul is another aspect that is attached to the giving of zakah. And in this light, we find a verse in the Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, when he says to him in Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 103, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. Take a portion of their wealth as a form of charity. You purify them through it, and you allow them to grow. You nurture their good qualities thereby. وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ, and pray for them. إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ سَكَنٌ لَهُمْ. Your prayer for them is a source of contentment. It is a source of peace. وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and Allah is all hearing, all knowledgeable. So in this sense, when we give zakah, we increase the wealth of the less fortunate. We increase our own wealth in the form of barakah and reward. We manage to purify our souls by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we purify our souls by ridding ourselves of the stinginess and selfishness associated with wealth, for it can be a distraction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this way, the Quran encourages us, and Islam encourages us, in fact not encourages but commands us to make sure that when we experience affluence, that we share that with others, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah.